But we have made progress, and we cannot let these people intimidate us with their ripping out of bike lanes. They're on the wrong side of history, and we have to make that true.
Welcome to That's Her Problem, the podcast where women who lead, connect, and rewrite the rules get real about building community. The challenges we face aren't always the same as everyone else's. But here's the truth. A city that's good for women is good for everyone. I'm your host, Patty Weens. Welcome here, friends. I'm so honored that you're joining me for episode 2, where I get to talk to my friend Sarah Goodyear. You heard me. Sarah is the co-host of the War on Cars podcast. She's a writer, among many things, and to me, she's also a podcast queen. She and the brilliant Doug Gordon are doing God's work out there in New York City and spreading the word about life after cars, which coincidentally happens to be the name of their new book. In today's conversation, we get to hear Sarah's side of the story, her elaborate journey from a young woman becoming a writer, working in print journalism, and finally ending up here where we meet her. I've been listening to podcasts from the early days of the iPod, when This American Life was the one podcast everyone listened to, and Ira Glass was my hero until I met Sarah. I unabashedly asked her to be my Ira Glass, my mentor in this process, and to my amazement, she said yes. And if you're wondering about me, my story, and how I got here, I suggest you go back to episode 1, Patty's version, and get acquainted. But without further traffic delays, 1, 2, 3, let's go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Sarah Goodyear. Thank you for joining me on That's Her Problem. You have to excuse my fangirling because I still can't believe that I get to have you as my first guest and mentor for this podcast. I'm a long-time listener to the War on Cars, and I'm excited and nervous that I get to be on this side of the mic. Nervous because you're an icon in this profession, someone I admire, and an accomplished journalist, but excited to get your feedback on this project. And I'm going to run this idea by you by asking you to tell your story. I would love to hear about your journey from journalism to podcasting queen.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, Patty. I love everything that you do, and I know I'm going to love this project too. And I'm very not comfortable being called an icon, but I'll take it, I guess. And, you know, it's been a strange journey for me because I never dreamed of being a journalist per se. I knew from the time I was a small child that I was a writer. And that is the way I identify. That is my professional identity that I still put on forms and things like that. That is what I think of myself as being as a writer. I have started writing when I was, 4 or 5 years old, wrote poetry, stories, all sorts of things, and studied poetry at UC Berkeley with the great poet Robert Pinsky. And then I really decided that the life of academia was probably not for me. And so poetry was not what I was going to pursue. And I got out of college. I got my degree in film theory, actually, which was part of the comparative literature department. I studied a lot of languages. I studied Russian, I studied Chinese, but my education didn't really add up to anything marketable. And there were two things. I graduated knowing the two things that I had always known was there were two things I could do, which is I can read and I can write. So there's a limited number of professions that reward those skills. So since academia wasn't my path, I figured I would try journalism. And I was lucky enough to get a job at a magazine in New York in the late 80s. It was called New York Woman. And it was edited by a great woman named Betsy Carter, and she had been at Esquire magazine, which was very famous then for having really high quality of articles and literary fiction published. And, and she wanted to create an Esquire for women. And she called it New York Woman. And it was a really great magazine where I got to work with amazing editors. And I started out as a fact checker there, and I became an assistant editor. And, I probably should have stayed there, but I got detoured, left that job, and moved up to the state of Maine, where I became a newspaper editor. I went with a guy who was from Maine, so that's sort of the explanation for that. And I spent some time as a newspaper editor and magazine editor in Maine, and I ended up in Portland, Maine at Casco Bay Weekly, which is an incredible newspaper that I got to edit for a few years. Came back to New York, worked at Rolling Stone. I worked at Time Out New York, which was a really cool publication back in the day. And then I had my son, Nathaniel. I published a novel.
You published a novel? This is a little thing you can't skim over.
Yes. I
What is
published
it
a novel. It's called View from a Burning Bridge, and I published it in 2007 with a great publishing company called Red Hen Press out of Los Angeles. Yeah, it was a sort of a semi-autobiographical novel about my time in Maine. I mean, it's not actually my story, but it is based on the milieu that I was living in at that time.
Is it still in print? Can we still get
It's not in print, but I think you can get it on Amazon for like a penny.
Yeah.
View from a Burning Bridge. You can find it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I was doing a lot of freelancing, and I was sick of the kind of writing I was doing. I had done a lot of cultural criticism, and I had done a lot of book reviews and film reviews, and I just, I knew I wanted to try something new. And so I answered an ad that I saw on a website called Media Bistro for a publication called Streets Blog, which I had never heard of. And they were looking for someone who could cover a mayoral press conference that our then mayor, Mike Bloomberg, was giving about his environmental plans for New York City. And so I answered the ad and said, I'm the kind of person who would talk about traffic calming at a party, at a cocktail party. Because it's true, I was already really interested in urban planning. As a newspaper reporter in Maine, I had reported on zoning boards, and, I knew that this stuff was important, and I'd been riding a bicycle for transportation since I was a teenager in New York, which was a really scary thing to do. So I answered that ad, and then Aaron Napperstack hired me to do that job. I went and saw this press conference. I turned the story around by the next day, and I guess I did okay, because then I started freelancing for them, and that became a part-time gig where I worked at Streets Blog. And that's really how I got started reporting on urbanism and transportation policy and bicycling culture and all of that. And I did that from 2006 to about 2009.
They're still around, right? Streets
Oh,
Blog,
very
that's
much
still
so.
a thing,
Streets
yeah.
Blog is an amazing publication, and now they're in different branches in different cities. They have a branch in Chicago. They have national arm, but the one in New York City is still going really strong, actually, under the editorship of a guy named Gersh Kunstman. So, yeah, and then that just sort of became my beat. And see how long this story is, because I've been around for a while. So then,
I love it. We never hear this side of the story.
Right. So then, so I was covering stuff for City Lab. I worked for Grist for a while. I worked at the New York Daily News for a while, doing long form journalism for them that was not transportation related. I reported on trans rights issues, immigration issues, and lots of other stuff there. But then that job ended, and I was like, I don't know. The industry had collapsed so many times that I just didn't know. And Aaron Napperstack and Doug Gordon had been talking about starting a podcast, and I was like, they asked me to come on as like a guest on a pilot thing. And I was like, could I do this with you guys? Because I really want to do this. And I was so tired. The other thing, Patty, so from what I've described, I hope it is clear that I wrote a lot of paragraphs. I wrote paragraph after paragraph after paragraph after paragraph for years and years and years and years. And I was so tired of writing paragraphs. And I would complain to my wife about it. I'd be like, oh my God, I don't want to write another paragraph. So when somebody put a microphone in front of my face instead, I was like, yeah, like, let's try this. Let's see what this could be. And then we all trained ourselves in different ways. And I went and I took a sort of a radio boot camp 1 week session run by a place called the Transom, which does amazing, amazing workshops if you want to learn audio. And one of the ways they used to do it, I don't know if they still do this, this was about 5 years ago, it was before the pandemic, they would partner with a local radio station. So this session was in Santa Fe, and I went out to Santa Fe and I had pre-scouted somebody that I wanted to do an interview with. And then the workshop was a 1 week thing of here's how to use your field kit. Here's how to think about doing an interview. I did the interview with this amazing rap artist there. And then you came back and edited it. And by the end of the week, you had a 2 or 3 minute long audio piece that then got aired on the local public radio station. And I learned all the different steps of how to put together just a short audio story. And that was just incredible training that showed you here's the basic, like if you just want to do it in the most basic way, you can, and here's how.
I think people don't really know how much work a 2 to 3 minute piece can be.
Yeah.
Because of all the telling the story is not just paragraphs, right? It's a paragraph from here, a paragraph from there, put it together, think about where it's going.
Yeah,
and it kind of trains you for everything.
Yeah, and also you have different elements that aren't words, right? So in this piece, I interviewed this young man, but I also included some of his music, you know, some ambient noise from around his house. And those are the other elements that you get to use when you're working in audio. You can use music, you use ambient sound, and it's very evocative for people. And it sort of was just like this whole new way of thinking. And it was just really fun and fresh. And so I think all three of us just felt like, wow, like this is great. And the other great thing about doing The War on Cars as a podcast was a lot of podcasts, I think, start not knowing exactly what it is that they want to do. But we knew, and we had all had a lot of experience talking about these issues and writing about these issues. So, we had that side of experience as well, of knowing how to present stories to an audience. And then we knew the audience was there. We knew that people cared about these things also because we had done advocacy and media that had reached, I had worked on things covering people all around the world. So I knew that there was a big audience for it. And we gradually have found that audience and built it up. And now it's kind of a thing. I mean, I can't believe we've been doing it for almost 7 years.
I know, it's crazy. Actually in preparation for this episode, I went back and I listened to the first episode and I think of how you and I met at the Winter Cycling Congress just last year. And I went up to you and I said, "You're going to be my friend."
And I was so happy.
I don't know if I said it or I thought it.
I was very happy about that. Yes, we did. We met there. Yeah, that was amazing. And like, you were so warm. And I was like, who is this person who's like being so nice to me?
Some Brazilian lost in Canada.
Yeah, for sure.
But one thing that struck me, learning sort of your process as we were talking, sitting on that couch, and then I went back and listened to your first episode where you said the whole reason that you guys started it was because you needed to get things off your chest, and I can totally relate. You knew there was an audience out there. And now you are getting it off your desk too by writing a book.
That's right.
And it's called Life After Cars.
Yes.
When does this come out?
It comes out on October 21st of 2025 this year. Life After Cars, Freeing Ourselves from the Tyranny of the Automobile. Yeah. And we're really excited. It's coming out from Penguin Random House imprint called Thesis. And we're going to be touring all around the US and I hope Canada. And yeah, we're extremely excited about this book.
Yeah, you said, I think you posted in a few places that we can connect with you to try to organize the book tour, right?
That's
Are you
right.
getting a lot of requests? How does
We
it
are
working out?
getting a lot of requests. It's a little bit overwhelming. As a matter of fact, I pretty much spent the entire afternoon on Zoom calls with people who are interested in hosting us.
Well, you can add us to that list, please.
Yes,
What I really wanted to say was that this call is about you coming.
okay. I see what you did here. So that's really exciting. And I think that it's a chance for us to reach an entirely new audience. And that's what the book is designed to do. It's designed to be the kind of book actually that you could give to somebody who you have a sneaking suspicion that they might get it, but they haven't really had the arguments made to them. They don't really see cars yet the way that you and I do, Patty, and we can talk about that in a second. But they still are a little bit car blind, as we say, and it's really a book for just anybody who wants to open their mind to the possibility that we don't have to live like this. That every time that they're annoyed or angered or scared or tired of driving, that there are alternatives. We could build a world where that's not necessary, where that kind of fear and exhaustion and all of the things that cars come with, the expense, the health, damage that it does to our health. There is another world possible. So the book is really designed to be, to help people see what the problems are and to think about how they can be part of the solution by showing them models of people like yourself, like all the ordinary people all around the world who are trying to make change. How can people become a part of that change once they see the need for it and the sort of the possibilities of it, the excitement of it, right?
Yeah. I think about that all the time. One of the things that I always said to people is, it wasn't my job that was stressing me out. It was my commute, and I didn't even know it. All that time we spend in cars. And I think of my parents on one side and my kids on the other. My parents, they're getting older. It's getting harder to drive both here and when they go back to Brazil for 3 months every year.
Oh.
And then I see my kids that one is in medical school, one is in business school, and they are having to pay tuition and also pay their car bills. And I think that if we don't start fixing this issue, my friend was telling me that her dad is 93 and shouldn't be driving anymore, and yet no one has the guts to take away his license because he says my life will be over.
Yeah, and he's partly right? Because once a person does give up those keys in North America, certainly in the United States, but I think in Canada as well,
very much,
huge numbers of people are not really enabled to be part of the society if they're not driving a personal motor vehicle. They just aren't really fully enfranchised members of the society, and they don't have the same rights, they don't have the same opportunities, they don't have the same access, and it's just not acceptable to marginalize what we had an interview with the wonderful writer and advocate Anna Letitia Zivarts, who wrote a book called When Driving is Not an Option. And in that book, she estimates that as many as a third of the people in her community in Washington state don't have the ability to drive. They're too young. They have a disability that prevents them. They've never gotten a license. They've never been able to learn how to drive, maybe because of financial constraints. They're too old. And for those people, what we're just going to say, a third of the people, sorry, you don't get to have a nice life because of cars. It's just foolish.
Yeah, and we're not making it any better.
Well, here and there we are making it better, right? Here and there.
Sometimes, yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like, especially one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is it feels like in certain places we are just hanging on to dear life, to the little things that we have. Trump just cut funding to federal projects for active transportation. That's an attack on all kinds of things, but especially marginalized communities and women,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
In São Paulo last night, the mayor, get this, I just saw this on the
Okay.
news yesterday, and I have a good connection with friends in São Paulo, so we talk all the time. But the mayor went on holidays, and the deputy mayor ripped out a bike lane.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seriously?
No warning, no permits, no nothing, just went and ripped it out. And the cyclists are like, what is happening? He's like, oh, I'm putting 2 parking spots here under a vital connection, under a very busy bridge.
And so what are people, are people going to push back on that? Do you know?
Oh, last night they had a massive critical mass. They filled those parking spots with bikes, thousands of bikes. Everybody's fighting back. Brazil, like they don't sit still for that kind of stuff, you know? But it's terrifying because we need to be pushing for more, and yet we're reactionary right now. We're like, no, don't take this one away. Don't take this painted lane. Don't take, the bike lanes on Bloor in Toronto. All those things we're constantly. And when a city councillor here tells us, look, you should be grateful that we're not Toronto. You should be grateful for what I give you. I feel personally attacked because we shouldn't be lowering the bar. We should be raising it. We should be the city that everyone looks up to. Right?
Yeah, no. I mean, look, I was just in Minneapolis, which is a great city, amazing.
So close to us.
So close to you. One of the, certainly perhaps the best bike lane network in North America. And yet it's just packed with freeways. And the advocates there are fighting to stop them from widening freeways in Black and brown neighborhoods. And the conference that we were at was Communities Over Highways. It was advocates from around the country who are fighting to try to stop new freeways and widenings. Some of them are trying to get highways torn down, which is great, and that's obviously where we should be at. And there's all sorts of issues to talk about there, about how to repair communities equitably, make sure that people don't get displaced yet again by a planning process that doesn't care about people. Fine, but most of the fights are actually to stop new freeways when we know, and we have known for generations, that you cannot build enough lanes and that you cannot build your way out of congestion. And we've known the effect that it has on health, the effect it has on communities, and we're just replicating it. In Texas, they're just destroying whole new Black and brown neighborhoods, as if we hadn't learned that lesson already dozens of times.
As if nobody heard of the power broker.
The 20th century was 25 years ago now. Like, we learned that lesson in the 20th century. That's already ancient history. Anyway,
I know.
It drives me mad.
One of the things that one of our counselors likes to say is, look, this is going to happen. Look, we need more roads. Look, like, you can't stop it. And we're like, watch us. We have to stop this.
Yeah.
Not only because of the cost, but like you said, the neighborhoods that are impacted by this. It's like, what do we have to do? Hand out copies of the power broker.
I know, at least if they would just pretend that they had read it.
Pretend. Do you know, I have a funny story. We went to Brazil last year. We went to Brazil 2 years in a row for the past 2 years. And Ian says hi, by the way.
Okay.
But he loves reading, and he bought the power broker and took it to the beach. It's 2.5 kilos.
I was going to say, I've known people who've ripped it into parts.
Oh no. He also brought it. I read it all, brought it home, and the pages were stuck together from the sea salt tear.
There you go. That's good. That way he proved his cred, like
Exactly.
He's not one of these people who's like, oh yeah, I read it, and like they never even got past page 25 or whatever. But I mean, yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's right. It's so well known that it's a cliche, and yet billions of dollars are being spent every year to perpetuate this madness. And so actually developed a culture, partly because there's so many bikes on the street in New York now. There are a lot of delivery bikes, a lot of e-bikes, and that has its own issues. Some of those people don't ride in the most productive ways sometimes, and some of their vehicles are not appropriate. Like some of their vehicles are overpowered and too fast. But the truth is, they're everywhere. And the city bikes are everywhere. The bike share is everywhere. There are, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of bikes on the street of New York every day, every hour of every day. And drivers have gotten less aggressive toward bikes. I would say I notice it. I don't get quite as much hostility anymore. It's more a sense, like a grudging sense that you're there. But we do have that legendary critical mass building here in New York. And so that's really exciting to see. And we do have a lot more public space, and we do have a lot more bike lanes, and a lot of them are protected. And in Minneapolis, they have beautiful protected bike lanes. They have an incredible greenway that goes all around the lakes and river and all of the beautiful features of Minneapolis. And people use it. And in my neighborhood, parents are taking their kids to school on cargo bikes right and left. I remember, a time 10 or 12 years ago when if you saw somebody on a cargo bike with their kid in New York City, I would come home and tell my family about it. Like, oh, I saw one today. Now they're just everywhere. Now it's normal. That is a real change. And it can be hard to see those kinds of changes when they happen really slowly.
Yeah,
but
true.
But we have made progress, and we cannot let these people intimidate us with their ripping out of bike lanes. They're on the wrong side of history, and we have to make that true ourselves.
Absolutely. So true. So your book is about this change. It's about I'm going to call it the introduction to the yellow pill.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Because everybody talks about the orange pill.
Yes, right.
I'm going to call this one the yellow pill, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one. Absolutely. Okay. I've already pre-ordered mine, and I'm super excited, and I'm going to follow you on all the book tours. We know that already. So you and I are going to check in again once I get my hands on my copy, and many times more, because I've asked you to be my guide in this process.
That's right.
And as I invite women to talk about ways in which they connect and impact their communities. Mm-hmm. And as we talk, we're not only inviting them to sit at our table, we're going to set the table our damn selves.
I like it.
So, why do you think it's important that we amplify each other's voices in this space?
Well, when we were talking about you doing this podcast, you mentioned the sense of comfort that women have when they're speaking with each other and the sense of trust that can build. And I think that, I think a lot of women, myself included, can feel somewhat defensive when talking with men, especially about matters that require any kind of technical expertise or knowledge, because so often our knowledge is questioned, and men, I think many men do that unconsciously, and they're not trying to do it, but they do it, and they don't examine that in their own patterns. And when you're with another woman, there's just sort of a barrier. There's a hoop that you don't have to jump through. You don't have to prove that it's possible that you could understand something. I had an educational experience that I think was really fruitful for me in this regard, which is from kindergarten through ninth grade, I went to an all-girls school. And it was a very highly competitive academic school. It was a super pressured environment, and there were a lot of things about it that were really messed up. But because we were all girls, and this is in the late 70s, we never had to compare ourselves to boys. We were never compared to boys. The whole point of the school was that it was supposed to be a school for girls, not a girls' school, but a school for girls, just like boys had, teaching us the same things that boys would learn. And it was very old fashioned, but we grew up thinking that our voices were the voices, and we didn't have to. We set every table. We made the table. And
You built it.
exactly.
You laid it with the fancy shit.
So, right. So, like, I guess my feeling about it is that when I went to a different school when I was a teenager and there were boys there, I wasn't intimidated by them. I just sort of acted the way I had always acted. And sometimes people were surprised by that. And then when I got into the professional world, I did have a lot of men really treat me as if I weren't intelligent and, try to diminish me in various ways. But I just sort of didn't let it get to me in a lot of ways because I just had this foundational thing that said, actually, I know that girls and women are, just capable of and deserving of everything that boys and men are, period. It was baked into me very early.
That's so great because it's exactly in those years that we learn that behavior of, or girls do this thing, boys do this other thing. But if you are encouraged right from the get-go to that, this is the voice that we listen to, there is no you this and boys that, right?
Yeah.
That's great. That sets you up for really believing in yourself right from the start.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I've always really believed in myself.
Right.
I wish I could say that, Patty. Okay. But like I had the potential.
Okay, we believe in you. We'll do it for you.
But yeah, like I guess at least, my complexes about not believing in myself were not based on my gender.
Right. This podcast is brought to you by me. I wrote a book called That'll Never Work Here. It's coming out on October 28, and you can pre-order it from wherever you get your books. You can also support me by going to pattybikes.com/podcast. Well, it's okay. So it's good because one of my ideas is to have a section in the show that I'll call Thank You, Amy. And it's an homage to Taylor Swift's song where she thanks one of her bullies who underestimated her and ended up inspiring her to work even harder to succeed and exceed expectations. So I think that so often we're underestimated as women in society, right?
Yes.
It's not cute. You're doing a little podcast. And we have to take up space and own who we are. Yep. And often we have to fight imposter syndrome. I know I do it every day. Do you have experience with that then, in that space?
Oh, yes, I definitely do. And I think of one case in particular back when I lived in Maine and I was hired to be an arts editor at this local alternative news weekly, great Casco Bay Weekly, great newspaper. And I got hired to be the arts editor, and the guy who was the news editor was one of those really tough journalist, investigative guys. And I am not that. I am not that. I am not good at investigative work. I'm just not. And I don't know if that has to do with my gender or not, but it's like I've never pretended that was something I was good at. But he really thought that was what was important. And he was there for the first few months I was there, and he was very dismissive of me. But then I ended up becoming the editor-in-chief of that newspaper right after he left to go to another paper in another city. And then I ended up becoming the publisher of the paper as well. And I took that paper from being a paper that lost money every year to being one that was, operating at a profit. We did a lot of good work. I had reporters working for me who were investigative reporters who did work that got things to happen in the city and made real change, including stuff about urban planning. And I ended up, being the editor of that paper for 4.5 years, and I did a damn good job. And I did feel that whole time that I had something to prove to him and people like him, because in that community there were a lot of people who didn't think I could do it because I was a woman. It was a kind of sexism I hadn't really reckoned with as much as I did in that moment. So yeah, and it's just a great feeling to just show up and do the work and get it done, and don't make a big deal out of it. Just do the work.
Just do the work and show them, right? I feel like you could continue with that arc, and you may feel like that was the thing that you did, but now look at you, you're occupying space in
Yeah.
a space that is largely occupied by men. And
Yeah.
I'm not knocking, we need that. We need more people to talk about urbanism, but we need that woman's voice because, I always say this, a city that's safe for women is safe for everybody. And I'm talking safety in every sense. A city that where you see women riding a bike, okay, this is different. When I was in São Paulo, I saw a lot of people. I don't know if you've ever seen what the bike lanes look like in there.
No.
So I have some videos to show, and they are in the center. So they didn't want to take space away from cars.
Okay.
So these busy highways, they put the bike lane in the middle. But there's lots of trees, so the bikes are it's actually gorgeous bike lanes, but they're in the middle.
Okay.
But for the 4 days that we rode our bikes there, day and night, we saw maybe 5 women total.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So that goes to show you, that's the culture is not there and women don't feel safe. Then we go to Curitiba, my hometown, that, is known for prioritizing transportation. They don't have the greatest bike lanes because they really focus on rapid transit, parks. They have beautiful urban parks and nature parks right in the middle of the city. But all of a sudden, there was women riding bikes with children everywhere. So this is where it is important that we take up space because our ideas matter.
Oh, yes. And not only should cities be safe for women, and it's obviously a city that's safe for women, as you say, is safe for everyone, and that's a beautiful goal. But cities should also be convenient and pleasant and easy, right, for women. It should be a feeling of ease because women obviously do a lot of the household labor and the child labor, and it's a lot of work. And transportation is a huge part of that work. And interacting with the fabric of the city is something that women in their caregiver role, their traditional caregiver role, is something they engage with a lot more than men do. I mean, any woman who's raised a child in the city knows that, getting a stroller onto a public conveyance and the shame that people can be giving you dirty looks and acting like you're doing some horrible thing, or you can't get things up and down the stairs. And, and it's just, it should be easy. It should be easy because it's hard to do this work. It's hard to raise families. And for men too. This is all for men too, because, God willing, there will be more and more men carrying their share of all of these loads. And for them too, it needs to be easy. And so I love the goal of safety for women. And obviously women are, well known as an indicator species in bike lanes, in parks. If you see women alone in parks, and I use it in cities as well. When I was walking around Barcelona by myself late at night after not, I didn't really know that much about where I was, and I saw 2 or 3 other women walking alone, and I was like, okay, I'm fine. But like, we need to also demand more than safety. We need to demand ease and convenience and pleasure.
I love it because women are responsible for 80% of the GDP. We're the ones going and buying the things, the clothes for the kids. And even in a perfect world where everything is 50-50, chances are we're still going to be the ones getting the groceries, caring for the parents, making those extra trips. If we only just thought of the women's kind of trips that are made in the city, we could take away so much traffic by allowing safe cycling or
100%
public transit. Right, more frequent public transit. We're going to experience a complete redo of our transit system in Winnipeg. So, stay tuned. We'll see how it goes. Okay. We're a little bit nervous because they're changing in the whole system into a feeder system.
Okay.
So it's going to go everything all at once at the
Wow.
end of June so that we have the summer to get used to it
Huh.
before school picks up again. So we'll see. We're very, very grateful that it's one thing that all of City Council has been in favor of. And we need more rapid transit. We
Yep.
need more BRT here because right now, you know, buses get stuck in with traffic. They become traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really doesn't help very much. But public transit is definitely one area that we could focus on and make it easier for everyone. Like you said, get the stroller, get the groceries on the bus.
Yeah. All of that is stuff that I want to see political leaders talking about more. And we do have political leaders here in New York. We've had a terrible administration now, and we've backslid a lot. But these issues are there, and people do know about them. And there are the younger candidates coming up and the more progressive candidates coming up who now talk about transportation regularly. Transportation never used to be a real issue in political campaigns in this country. So that, I mean, just having it be one of the things that's a topic of discussion, even if it's to be attacked by our current president, I think means that we've kind of arrived.
Yeah, it's true. That's how you know. My friend always says that if they're talking about us, we are winning.
That's right. That's right.
We just got to keep pushing.
That's right.
Well, I want to keep you all night, but we're going to go into the little rapid fire question.
Let's do it.
And I have one question that you don't know. It's a surprise to you.
Okay. All right.
But if you were a bicycle,
Okay.
what kind of bicycle would you be?
Oh, I would be the bicycle that I ride and love and have loved for about 15 years now. It is a Surly Crosscheck. It is a cyclocross steel frame bicycle with bar end shifters. It's it can take any kind of terrain. It's fast and nimble, and it's tough as hell.
That's you in a nutshell. We're gonna need a picture of this beautiful bike.
I will send you.
Does she have a name?
No, I don't name my bikes.
Okay.
It's my Surly.
Okay. And then,
Shout out to Surly bikes. I mean, great
out.
bicycles.
I always look at the Surleys and I'm like, maybe that's in my future.
Oh my gosh, I got it as a splurge when we had some good fortune, and it was the best purchase I've ever made. It's the best bicycle I've ever had, and I aspire to be like that bicycle.
Oh, I love it so much. That's great. What would you say is your superpower?
Wow, that is a really tough one. I would say my superpower is resilience. And I mean, I don't know that there's much more I can say about that. But like, I guess I could just say that I really don't ever believe that I'm down. When I get knocked down, I think I never really accept it. And that's what helps me bounce up again.
I need to learn that more, and I need to grow a thick skin, and just Ian and I talk about how I need to be the resilient Brazilian. So I call myself the Brazilian.
Okay, I love it. There you go. All right.
The other question is, I'd like you to recommend a favorite book by a female author, so we can link it in the show notes.
Okay, a favorite book by a female author. Okay, I am going to choose the book How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. Jenny Odell is, in my mind, one of the most brilliant writers working today in a sort of free-form essay, book-length format. And the book How to Do Nothing is really a call to all of us to rediscover our humanity and to reject being pushed into service of capital in every aspect of our lives by technology and consumerism. And it's so beautifully written and so lyrical and so filled with other little things that you can explore and mentions of other writers, and there are lots of birds in it. And I don't know, it's a great book. I love that book very much.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna read that next because it
Okay.
sounds amazing.
It's super 21st century and
Okay.
it's pretty tough. She's a smart one.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, what's next for you? Where can we find you? What's going on? I know that there's a lot coming up and
Yes.
you've got a lot going on at the moment.
Yes, we are working still putting out the podcast, which is a lot. So you can always find us at thewaroncars.org. That's where we post the podcasts and you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. But we have the book coming out, as we said, on October 21st, Life After Cars, and you can go to lifeaftercars.com to find that. But and to find out about tour dates as we add them. That's going to be it. We're going to go on book tour. We're like taking it on the road. We're going to a lot of places, and I'm not sure exactly where, but like right in the first week, there's going to be quite a few. So yeah, it's just go to lifeaftercars.com and you'll see where you can find us. And we're probably going to be bouncing out onto the road for a couple weeks at a time through the winter, at least.
Yes, and you have a Patreon page for
Yes,
those of us who want to support.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/The War on Cars.
War on Cars Pod, I think.
Okay, pod. Awesome.
Yeah, and if you just go to our regular thewaroncars.org page, there's also a support button. And yes, Patreon supporters, you get access to bonus episodes, you get
Stickers.
you get stickers, you get a handwritten note from me, you get a lot of stuff. So
I have my handwritten note from you on my fridge as my inspiration. I love it so much.
Patty, you are my inspiration. I just want to say that your energy and enthusiasm and your kindness and your fierceness and your perseverance and your vision are inspiring to me. And honestly, it's been some dark days down here in the United States of America. You may have heard.
Yeah.
And every now and then I get on Signal and I'm like, Patty, help. And you're always very nice.
Just say when you need to meet you at the border.
But like, it's really like for real. It's you and people like you, of whom there are so many, who are doing the work in difficult places and doing it against the odds and having fun doing it. That's the cool thing. And that's our superpower, Petty, is that we have fun doing this.
Yes.
We have fun.
It
right?
has to be fun or else we
Our
can't.
enemies are not having fun. Our enemies are filled with bitterness and rage.
They're so angry.
We're filled with light and laughter and love, right?
Absolutely. Sarah, I cannot thank you enough. Never in a million years that I imagine I'd be here having a conversation with you, creating this community together.
Yes.
And empowering each other and other women to do the same. It's truly a dream come true, and I'm so thankful for you. And please give Doug my love as well.
I will.
And I'm going to find a way to come to 1 or 10 of your book tours.
Okay. For sure. Great. Thank you very much, Patty.
Thank you. And there you have it. Thank you for listening. Join me again next week with Diana Lisa, author of Love Letter to Suburbia. A reminder that this podcast is a love letter to you, wherever you live, encouraging you to connect with your community and see your surroundings through a woman's perspective, because that's her problem. If you like this podcast, consider supporting it. Go to pattybikes.com/podcast to find out more. A special thank you to my 2 OnlyFans. I don't have OnlyFans. My 2 Patreon supporters, Michael Abbott and Andrew Single. Everyone could use friends like these 2, ride or die in every sense. And hey, you too can hear your name spoken with a Brazilian accent every week for only $5 a month.